Welcome down North of the Upstate. I'm Mari.
And I am Matthew.
And today, apologies, we are still recording out on our porch. It is rainy, and there will be cars going by.
All due to footfalls above us.
It is much more noisier where we usually record, yes. Partly due to the normal bad ways of these apartments that were built. There's really no...
Was originally, this house was built in 1888.
And there's no sound barrier between us and the upstairs neighbors. And even though they are quite, normal footfalls get quite loud. And we think there's an animal stuck in the wall somewhere as well. I have not been the only one who's heard it. I'm not imagining things.
You're not alone. We've all heard it.
We don't think it's a rat. We were pretty sure it's not a rat. And
it's somewhere on the second floor inside the walls.
They may have had a ferret up there. It could be the ferret. Or more than likely, it's one of our squirrels. One of the many squirrels. So, between the age of this house and the fact that there is a wild animal somewhere between our floors, it is hard to record inside. Yeah. Because we could be in the middle of recording and all of a sudden you hear...
or some such.
Yeah. Where I'd rather put up with the rain and the cars come. And actually, that's a good segue. We got this strange, mysterious beast.
Mm-hmm. Well, three of them, actually.
In our house. And we're going to be talking about three mysterious beasts in New York.
One is the Gorton Turtle.
The Gorton Turtle.
The other is the Silver Lake Serpent.
Yes.
And the other is the Lake George.
The Lake George monster. Yes.
Monster.
So let's start with the Gorton Turtle.
Shall we?
The Gorton Turtle. Now, not much known about the Gorton Turtle, except he's pretty famous locally. He got his own historical marker. Yay!
And let's give a little bit of background as to how historical markers are developed in New York.
Yes, the historical markers in New York are mainly produced by the William Pomeroy, I think I'm saying it wrong, Foundation. Mm-hmm. William Pomeroy Foundation. Okay. And they do a lot of the historical markers. You apply to them for a grant and they will produce one for you. Mm-hmm. And the Gorton Turtle, which is part of their Legend and Lore series. And if you come to New York and you see a marker that's red with white letters, that's a Legend and Lore. That means it's usually like an urban legend. It's a local tale.
It's a local legend about buried gold.
In fact, there is some. There, I've seen a couple of those
in Phoenix.
Yeah,
there's a Legends and Lore marker about some treasure that was left there by some land pirates going up and down the river and the canals.
So the Gorton Turtle, the inscription on their plaque says, "The Gorton Turtle, as Tom Dorsey cleared his land, his wagon load of huge rocks couldn't be moved by horses. A giant turtle surfaced and dragged the wagon into the lake."
Oh dear.
So to give a little more background, the Gorton Lake is kind of a smaller lake. I think it's in Madison County. I could be wrong. And he, just like they said, he was clearing rocks and he filled the wagon too full of rocks. And of course his horses couldn't pull it. Mm-hmm. And he was clearing land, for the field and whatever.
Been rock picking before. Yeah. That's a day's work.
So he kind of gives up and he's sitting out on his porch going, what am I going to do with all these rocks? I can't move them.
Yeah.
And this giant mud turtle, just puts his head out of the water and pulls that wagon into the lake.
Oh, and
that's the story.
And no, that's not an. Oh, once the turtle trashed his wagon, it reared its head to give Dorsey a wink before it slipped back into the water.
Right. Well, it doesn't say on the plaque when this happened.
Snarky turtle.
I did a little more research, and it's kind of hard to find any research. I couldn't find a copy of the book that was mentioned where they got this tale originally. Mm-hmm. I mean, I looked everywhere for it. Some historical group has got to have a copy of it. Yeah. But I couldn't find it online. I found the author and a bunch of his other books, but not this particular one. I did find mention in a newspaper in 1893. So this was a tale prior to 1893 in the area. Mm-hmm. And the article is kind of, it's one of those local gossip type things, where...
Absolutely,
Mary Jo visited from...
local happenings.
Yeah, that type of thing. They went to a picnic, had a great time. So anyway...
There was carrot shaved into the lime jello.
Yeah, that type of stuff, yeah. So this is kind of a snarky one. And unfortunately, I couldn't get all the article because I was having a dickens of time doing research, and I was coming upon copies of these newspapers where they were bad copies to begin with when they made the PDF. So it was really hard to read. So this one says, Albert E. Bentley and F.M. Spooner left for the World's Fair City Monday. The art gallery would be the objective. And then it turned into a black mass of unreadable letters. And B prevailed upon a while to produce some of the hidden mysteries of the art. The fair is liable to be continued for a month longer. In which case, they would witness some of the tallest slinging of paint since the days of Noah painting his window blinds. In the case of any such thing should happen, the snake editor will occupy the chair of the courier office and watch Gorton Lake to make sure that the bullheads don't drink the lake dry, and that John Dorsey's mud turtle will not carry off a sailboat.
Interesting thing about the mud turtle.
Yeah.
It's tiny.
It's tiny. They only go like 5 inches at the base.
So what's Dorsey doing? What's he identifying this thing as a mud turtle if it's enormous?
I know. While this may sound familiar to people, there's another famous turtle in Indiana, not in New York, but almost a similar type story. The only difference is, I think the one in Indiana really happened. Okay. But it was in 1898, a farmer named Oscar Falk claimed to have seen this giant turtle living in his lake near his farm. And he told a few people about it, and then he just dropped it.
Yeah.
But in 1948, 2 other people then saw a huge turtle while fishing on the lake.
Okay.
It started to spread. Well, this became known as the Beast of Fusco.
Oh.
What people think it is an alligator snapping turtle.
Oh, that makes great. Yeah.
So what people think it is an alligator snapping turtle. Those things are ugly, and they're huge, and they definitely can be a monster. So,
the one we saw in the canal was at least 1.5 feet across the shell.
And that wasn't even an alligator one.
No,
Have you seen a picture of an alligator snapping turtle?
They can get pretty big.
They're huge, and they look like something that could be a kaiju.
Like Gamera?
Like Gamera, yeah. Except if Gamera had a very nasty face, there's a reason they call it alligator snapping turtle.
All right.
So I find that interesting. There are 2 giant turtle stories. Which one do I believe? The one that happened in Indiana. Because there was no pulling down of sailboats or eating a wagon of rocks. You know? But it's a nice little story, you know, and I'm sure you could scare some little kids while you were trying to swim on Gorton Lake. Be like, oh, watch out for that giant turtle.
You know, Dorsey had been picking rocks all day. Perhaps it was exhaustion.
Maybe.
You know.
Or, hey, he said he was sitting on his porch, but didn't say what else he was doing on his porch. Okay.
Perhaps enjoying a cocktail after work.
Would you blame him? No.
Done it himself.
But we mentioned the markers, right? We should also mention that they have different types of markers. Mm-hmm. Like we mentioned, the Legends and Lore ones are
the red and white.
And then they have the blue and yellow, which are the historical ones.
Actual historical
ones,
yeah.
I'm just checking their website here. They also do the same program in Ohio and a couple of states, too. But I know they are all over New York. So if you come to New York City, New York State, and you see a signage, more likely, especially if it's a new one, more likely be a...
These are tough markers. These are cast metal and they baked on paint.
Side note, we had a friend of ours whose family actually had an historical marker that was about a family member of theirs. It was on one of their lands, and the marker got stolen.
Oh, I heard about this because it was copper.
It was copper, and I remember how upset our friend got about it. Dave, if you're listening, I hope you don't mind us telling this story. And
it's by way of example.
Yeah, and those guys were caught. There was just one recently, like a week or so, that got stolen as well. They haven't caught those people yet, but the guys who tried to get rid of that other marker, my friend's family's marker that they were, tied to. They tried to chop it up in little pieces and then take it to a scrap dealer. Now, okay, I know scrap dealers get a bad reputation, but even if they get somebody coming with a bag of copper that's been cut up like that, that's going to go ding, 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 ding. Something's wrong here.
And if you bother to piece together that jigsaw, you can see that it's got writing on it.
Yep.
And, on this day, well, yeah, this has been torn up from a place that...
He delayed until the cops got there, and they got arrested. And eventually, the marker got replaced. So that story ended up nice. That ended up good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going to happen to the one that was just stolen. I mean, I'm a member of a Facebook page, and that's what we do. We go out and take pictures of these historical markers. It's like Pokemon for history nerds. Okay? And that was one of the latest stories is, I forgot which marker it was, but it looks as if somebody took a chain, wrapped it around the post, and then ripped it out of the ground that way. Didn't even take the time to try to remove it properly.
No, wow, yeah.
So I hope they find those guys and... And the sign gets replaced as well because, some people are like, oh, these are, they're just eyesores, right? Put them up. Actually, you find some interesting bits of history and stuff.
Exactly.
Like the Gorton Turtle.
Yeah, and if you're at all a historical or legendary sign hunter in New York, that's exactly the sort of thing you're looking for.
Yeah. Where I work. There's 3 of them where I work. So you can find them everywhere.
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, that's enough about the Gorton Turtle and historical markers. So let's go to the western side of the state and go to Silver Lake. So Silver Lake Serpent. This happened in 1855. So these are all old ones, right?
Perry, New York.
In Perry, New York. 2 boys and a few guys were fishing. And, of course, they didn't have really good day fishing. So they started heading in, and they started rowing the boat, and they saw this log floating by. Well, it wasn't a log. This beast leaped from the water. Basically, you see those paintings, wildlife paintings of like a muskie leaping out of the water. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, imagine that. Okay, but it's a monster. And it goes back into the water. And, of course, then they're like, they hightail it out of there, again. Hanna-Barbera. It's going to be a shake. You see a shake, sea monster. Okay.
Suddenly finds, after whinging about a day's work, Shaggy suddenly finds the energy to become a human motor for a human Evinrude.
Right.
Paddles that boat himself back to shore.
Well, this became like big news, and like there was a mob looking for this thing, and like they even got an old whaler came in with a harpoon to get this thing.
A full whaler?
A retired whaler.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. We're talking about the person.
We're talking. It probably
not the ship.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
No. But this old guy with his harpoon went out there to get this thing.
The only whaler in existence I know of is the W. Morgan, and it's over in Mystic Harbor. Yeah. Connecticut.
So could the lake hold such a thing? Well, I don't know. It's kind of a small lake. But a lot of people claim they saw it, right? Well, there was a hotel that was on the lake.
Was it now?
Yeah, it was called the Walker Hotel. And, of course, people want to go see this lake monster, right? Where are they going to stay? They're going to stay at the Walker Hotel.
Of course.
Right? Well, in 1857, it burned down.
Yep.
The hotel. Well, what does this have to do with the monster? Well,
what's the connection?
They found a huge mass of canvas with a wire mesh. The owner had constructed this said serpent to drum up business for his hotel.
So what we got here, folks, is not a ghost selling t-shirts, but a sea serpent
selling t-shirts.
Selling t-shirts.
And he did get the idea from another legend in the area, so we got to give him credit. He didn't just make this thing up. There was legends about large creatures in the lake already. So, got to give the guy credit. He didn't just, decide to make something up. Because in my research, I've come across a couple places where it's pretty obvious the new owners of the B&B or the new owners of the hotel want to drum up business, so they make up a ghost story.
Exactly.
And you hear locals complaining, like, that place has never been haunted. That never happened there. So, guys, if you're going to use ghost-selling t-shirts or a sea serpent-selling t-shirts, make sure you at least base it in something that actually happened. Because then, if people say, "Oh, that place is haunted," at least you're not making up a story. Yeah. You at least have something that's plausible.
Yeah, the fairy tale is much more believable if it surrounds a kernel of truth.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that was basically it. He did it because he needed business. He was really afraid he was going to lose his hotel.
But the legend stuck, and they got a marker out of it.
I don't know if they did get a marker out of it.
No,
did it? I don't think they did. Did they? I'm doing my notes, but it did stick around because people.
But the legend continues.
Yeah, because people do. They still have they still celebrate it in the town of Perry. People still claim they see it, even though it was found.
So the locals have embraced the legend.
Yes.
Much the same way they've done with Mothman.
Or Hodag.
Hodag, right.
Oh, this is more like the Hodag.
This is more like the Hodag.
Because it was obviously made up. Mm-hmm. The one for Hodag, that was more of a, I just want to see how many people I can fool with this. But this was definitely, he needed the business to get people to his hotel.
The half-baked fake Silver Lake.
Yep. But there was, the story that he did use came from a Native American Seneca. The Senecas. Mm-hmm. They talked about a slug creature that lived there that was about the size of a barrel, and it was 6 feet long. You couldn't be loud around the lake, or it would attack you. There was a legend in place already there. He just used that legend to make a fake creature. So, are these people seeing what they want to see on that lake and claiming it is the Silver Lake monster? Or are they seeing what the Native Americans talked about? Because, that could be an eel. That could be, a sturgeon. There's so many things it could be,
Absolutely.
Yeah, except, the Native Americans in their tale, too, they did destroy it because a storm came and lightning struck it and they were able to kill it.
I had a spider on me. No, it didn't bite or anything. It just... When it lighted on me, it tickled and I got it off.
Mm-hmm. So, that's basically the Silver Lake Monster. So, if you want to go there, check it out. I mean, the owner of the hotel admitted everything. But still, I think it's kind of a cool story. Yeah.
That's a terrific story, though.
Yeah.
A terrific hoax. Mm-hmm. And how it was revealed.
Yeah.
Is so, like, Goonies.
I know.
Place burns down.
Yeah.
And, here are the remnants of the hoax here in the root cellar or something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, that was it all along. Oh my goodness sakes! Played us for suckers.
So we're gonna go jump ahead to the 1900s. We're finally made it into the 1900s with these stories, and we're up at Lake George. Now we were up at Lake George a few months ago.
Yes, we were.
Beautiful town.
Lovely country.
Beautiful up there. I highly recommend.
Lousy reception.
My phone died. Literally. It
fried
the GPS. It fried the GPS on my phone up there. Yeah. Make sure you've got very good phone service when you go to this part of the
Adirondacks. Yeah, no kidding.
But,
or get a GPS system that runs off a satellite.
Yeah. But Lake George is famous for a few things up there. I want to go back and see, because when we went up there it was off-season, so the House of Frankenstein wasn't open.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, the House of Frankenstein wasn't opened, the one thing I thought we could go see is there's this thing called the Mystery Spot.
Yes.
Where you stand in the middle of this one spot and you can hear your voice echoing, and unfortunately they dumped all the snow on it, so we couldn't do it. So we have to go back sometime, like in the fall, check it out. But anyway.
Exactly.
But Lake George had its own monster as well.
Uh-huh.
Lake George, it's 32 miles long. It's kind of a small lake. And
It's 32 miles long?
Yeah.
That's not a small lake.
Compared to the Finger Lakes, yeah, it is.
32 miles in length?
Man, some of those Finger Lakes get longer than that.
Okay, forget me.
And we're surrounded by 2 Great Lakes. I mean, come on. And Lake Champlain. We could say it's a small lake.
But it's very low. It's very narrow.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
This monster suddenly appears. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears these 2 men. Waltrus, who is a painter and was a one-time president of the National Academy of Design. So Waltrus, who was a painter and he was president of the National Academy of Design, not at the time, but he had been. He made a wager with a Colonel Mann, who was the editor of the newspaper. Well, not the respectable newspaper. All right.
Right.
So they made a bet to see who could catch the largest trout. Mann held up what to be a 30 to 40 pounder specimen as he passed Waltrus. However, Waltrus realized that it was just a painted fake. So he wasn't too happy with that.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Didn't take very kindly to being fooled.
No.
This was supposed to be, a clean race.
Yeah.
And here you are cheating. You're taking shortcuts.
So in 1934, Waltrus had this interesting story, and I'm just going to quote it here. While the colonel was in New York attending business during the week ending June 27th, 1904, I got a cedar log and fashioned one end of it into my idea of a sea monster or hippogriff. I made a big mouth, a couple of ears, like the ears of an ass, 4 big teeth. Ears of an ass.
But I'm sure he wasn't referring to his opponent.
No. Ears of an ass. 4 big teeth, 2 in the upper and 2 in the lower jaw. And for eyes, I inserted the sockets of a monster, 2 telegraph poles insulators of green glass, which are think everybody tries to collect now.
I know.
Anyway.
But the way that the light reflects and diffuses through those.
Yeah.
It kind of, when the light's shining through it, it kind of gives it a glow.
Yeah.
So I can see where this would add to the effect of the lake serpent.
Yep.
Very creative.
I painted the head in yellow and black stripes, painted the inside of the mouth red and the teeth white, and painted 2 red places for nostrils, and painted the ears blue.
Blue ears?
Blue ears. And a yellow head. Interesting. The log on which I fastened the head was about 10 feet long. To the bottom of the log, I attached a light rope, which I pulled through a pulley attached to a stone, which served as the anchor. The pulley line was about 100 feet long and was manipulated from shore. The artist continued. Well, I went out and anchored the hippogriff close to the path where Colonel Mann's boat would have to take from the landing to his island. And I tested the monster several times, sunk it, and waited for Colonel Mann and his party to arrive on Saturday afternoon. The Colonel had as guests Mr. Davies, Mrs. Bates, and several other conjugal spirits. Hidden behind a lump of bushes on shore, I watched as the launch approached, and just as it was about 10 feet away from my trap, I released the monster. It came up knobbly, the head shaking as if to rid itself of water, and I will say to several people in Colonel Mann's boat, it was a very menacing spectacle.
Oh, terrific.
Mr. Davies, who had a rather high-pitched voice, uttered a scream that must have been heard as far away as Burlington, Vermont. Mrs. Bates, a very intrepid lady, a Milesian extraction, stood on the seat of the boat and beat the water with her parasol, shouting indistinguishable sentences in her native tongue. And Colonel Mann shouted, "Good God, what is it?" through his whiskers. And kept repeating his query as long as the boat was in sight. As soon as I gave the audience a good look at the hippogriff, I pulled it down to the bottom of the lake again. Although Colonel Mann's home was on the island, the news of the sea serpent was all along the shore that night. Taking advantage of the darkness of night, I moved the monster from place to place along the lake shore, and everyone who saw my monster had a new story to tell of the awe-inspiring appearance. And each day would provide new thrills to the populace, and that is how the rumor started, and there was an honest-to-goodness sea serpent living in Lake George. I love that story. Oh my God.
That is a fantastic story.
You think
and a great hoax.
Oh, yeah. But you think it'd end there, right? Should have stopped.
Did it spawn any copycat
Oh,
hoaxers?
Yeah, it did. It did.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, it makes big news at the time. I mean, all these stories make big news at the time. You know, I mean, my God, you know, at Silver Lake, we had a whaler show up with a harpoon to go after this thing. So,
was his name Queequeg?
Yep. So, along the sites where he was sending up his monster, one was near a hotel, and there was a young couple was honeymooning at the hotel. They had gone for a moonlight canoe ride.
Oh, he's not menacing honeymooners, is he?
When the monster surfaced close to the canoe, causing it to capsize.
Oh, it happens every time.
I know. The groom, unable to keep his wits about him, swam to shore, leaving his bride to fend for herself. Nice. Nice.
Oh my God. He's created a disaster, not a hoax.
She eventually made her way to shore. Stormed into the hotel, packed her bags, announcing not only the end of the honeymoon, but for the marriage. It was reported she was actually grateful for the serpent for showing the true monster was her husband. Because he left her in the lake. Hint.
Obviously not understanding anything of human nature.
Yeah. Hint. If you're on your honeymoon and you fall into the boat, you both of you fall in the boat, you both support each other back. You just don't leave the other one.
Oh my God.
Well, 30 years later, he was asked to recreate his hoax. Everybody wanted to see his hoax again. Because, you know, I mean, that was a great story, you know, and I bet other people, had, even after they found out it was a hoax, like, hey, we were so scared, it was great, you know, type thing. So...
Where's it going to pop up next?
The elderly artist agreed upon this and brought his hippogriff out of hibernation.
Oh, boy.
He set up his contraption, and during one of the water events, he spooked a boatload of onlookers.
Creating another capsizing, did he?
I spoofed the world once with this horrendous beast, and I spoofed it again.
Yeah, under the right lighting and humidity conditions on the lake, I suppose you could get some ominous effects with something like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, they have a copy of this at the Lake George Historic Museum, of the fake, and it's known as Georgie, obviously.
Of course.
That one is considered a fake. It's actually a copy of the original.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're trying to find where the original went to. They really haven't been able to find it. I did find a mention somewhere thinking somebody thought it was in the Virgin Islands for some reason. No reason was given.
Really?
It was just Lake George Lake monster creature is in the Virgin Islands, you know.
That far?
Yeah. So somehow that's one rumor. That's where they ended up. Nobody really knows where the original ended up. And, you know, the one in the Historic Museum is supposedly the copy. You know, they're trying to find the original. But there's a bed and breakfast, which now is where Waltrus used his old home. And they will show you where he hooked up the creature. They still have the eye bolts in the rock. Where he hooked up
that's right.
system.
I saw those photographs. Yeah. Some of his mechanism was still there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Who knows? Somebody goes poking around in the water in the shallows, they might find a pulley.
Right.
Or something.
Right.
Who knows? Because he placed this effigy in different areas around the area. It must have been near his property there, so that he could control the monster more easily and keep its secret.
Right. And scare honeymooners. Now,
I'll bet he burned it.
Who knows what he did with it? You know, he was an artist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, probably after a while, he was like, "Oh, this is taking up space." Just tossed it.
Probably.
You know.
And as for the coloration, I know from being, being an artist myself, you basically use what you got on hand as far as paints.
Yeah, so
its painting scheme must have been dictated by the colors that he had available, probably, on his property.
But
And that's how, the color scheme was born. Mm-hmm. For the Lake George monster.
There are some people, though, that do say, well, yeah, that did happen, but there is a monster in the lake as well. They do admit, hey, that was the hoax. That was a guy having fun. He got back at that dude tried to, cheat him out. Colonel Man. Yeah. They're all for it, and they all understand. Georgie, that's great. But there's other people who say, no, there is a creature out there, but it's a mammal. It's not a fish. And so people are insisting that it's a large otter or mink, that they're seeing an oversized otter or mink. Which kind of reminds me of this YouTube video I saw by the... it might have been Lake George.
An otter, I would believe.
Yeah.
An otter.
There was a video, it's somewhere on YouTube. It was done by a tourist association of the giant beavers that live in the Adirondacks.
Oh, I've heard of the giant beavers that live in the Adirondacks.
Yeah. So this might be an offshoot of that, but that one was done all tongue-in-cheek about, how if you're on a boat, you might run into the giant beavers who are the size of a Volkswagen. Yeah. I don't know how large these otters or minks are supposed to be, but they apparently like to steal fish off fishing lines. So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But that's very amusing. How this all began between, two rivals.
Yep.
And a fishing bet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it developed into this.
Yeah, and yeah, and people embrace it again, like the Hodag. People know it was fake, but hey, we're still gonna have fun with it. It's a great story, it really is. And if you want to see what pictures of it, there is a picture of it we found. So one of the pictures I see is the head and the pulley system he used. So basically. The picture is, a description of it. He would run the rope through some fixed points he had set up in the lake, and then basically run it like a puppet, like we talked about in that other one, and pull it up or down.
Wait for hapless boaters.
Yeah.
And just release the monster.
Mm-hmm. And then when he did it, the one for the Independence Day 30 years later, someone got a good picture of it, and I don't know, if you were up close, you'd be like, haha, good, you got me. But if you were far away, you might think it's something. It looks, I hate to say it, it looks like Crow T Robot without the catchment thingy on the back. That's kind of... It does, it looks like Crow T Robot, oh my god.
You got MST3K. Yeah, and he's got those hemp strands going through it, for whiskers.
Yeah, I love that. Teeth. I love that promotional photo. It's obviously from the 60s, because the way the ladies dress. And they got this obviously very fake Lake George monster.
Yes. And
she's reacting to it like,
like it just popped up.
A B horror movie. And that one looks like a head stuck on a PVC pipe. Okay, but...
It does. You can see the seams clearly.
Yeah, I know. But I just love that reaction of the model. Like some scream queen from the 50s, Oh my god.
Well, by that time, there was... People still didn't know that Nessie was nothing but a model submarine.
Right.
And there were still people...
This is pre-Nessie. This is pre-Loch Ness monster. Oh, the sturgeon photo you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so people were still in search of Nessie at the time.
There are people who try to debunk that photo by saying there wasn't a toy submarine like that in production in the 1930s.
Oh, yeah. Please.
You could have made a plasticine head like that in the 1930s. The technology wasn't there. Like, you're really stretching it.
Yeah.
Because there were toy submarines out in the late 1900s,
exactly,
late 1800s, and clay has been around thousands of years. So I'm sorry. Don't try to say it's not a hoax because we can't recreate it. You can. You just don't want to.
Exactly.
But
plastic casting technology, was a thing.
But there's another story of the Georgie monster appearing were these two boys were swimming, and this was a year after his hoax. Now, I'm going to read you what they saw. And was it his hoax? Was it embellishments? Or did somebody make improvements? Okay. So another sea serpent is being told up at Lake George, and members of the Hague colony assert that the tale is true. The alleged serpent was seen Monday by the Reynolds brothers, two lads from Philadelphia who have spent their several summers at the Hague. Monday, the boys were bathing, and it was their practice paddled out to deeper water and then dove from their canoe. Taking a long, deep dive, the boys left the canoe for some distance from them, and returning to the craft, with a spurt, they noticed that it tossed and pitched for no apparent cause. Then, while they were yet 10 feet from it, the canoe overturned, and they were now much confused and frightened, but a stroke of two brought them alongside the overturned canoe. Seizing either end, the boys attempted to right the canoe, but to no avail. Then the boys say a spout of water shot high in the air, falling almost to drown them. Now the monster object appeared above the surface of troubled water. It was the head of a living, moving animal, a sea serpent. Large green eyes sunk deeply in the head, fins and horns like elephants' trunks, which stuck out from the sides, and the monster's mouth were the characteristics of a head, though thoroughly frightened the boys beheld. In size, the head might have been as large as a barrel or a hogshead, and its color was greenish-red, if such a color existed. That does not match the description of his hoax. So what was this thing? This was a year later.
Oh, wow.
So what was this one?
Incredible.
Do you think the boys made it up? Or do you think he made improvements?
Or was somebody hard at work?
Improving on it.
Exactly.
I like the addition of spitting water, though. And again, this time, though, people showed up with their guns and revolvers, spears and clubs and poles to go find it. Of course, they never found the serpent.
In size, the head might have been as large as a barrel or hogshead, and its color was a greenish red, if such a color exists.
Isn't that puce?
Wow.
Isn't that puce, basically?
I don't know. Again, the artist is using colors that he has on hand.
Right. So. I like the addition of spitting the water.
Yes.
But it's interesting because this article was written in 1905. And I don't think people realized it was a hoax at that point. And the last paragraph of the article says, last August, a sea serpent was reported and seen near The Hague, and many are inclined to believe that the visitor this week is the same monster. But we know from the description from the artist that that wasn't the colorations he used. So we have a couple possibilities here. One, the artist made another one.
Oh boy.
And was having fun. He was having so much fun the year before, he might as well do it though. Somebody else made the monster.
And provoked the deployment of local militia.
Yeah.
You know?
3, the boys made it up. They overturned their canoe, didn't want to get in trouble, so they made this whole story up.
You know how it happens.
Yeah.
You take your entire camp, you pack it up, put it in the canoe, and then you're finished with your swim. You're trying to get back into the canoe, and you roll it over. Yeah. And so you might have had some equipment in there that you had to borrow, and the fact that you effed up and dumped somebody else's crap, into the lake. It's not going to go over very well. No. So you cook up a really good lake serpent, kind of story.
Fourth possibility?
Yes.
Because people say there's large otters there?
Oh, yeah.
Could be the creature that other people say they claim to see there.
Well, if the otter's at all familiar with people, and they can't resist, you throw it a tuna sandwich, whatever, and so because it's so bloody cute, and so this thing encounters a canoe, right? Yeah. It's a human thing. It's used to humans. It tries to crawl in, rolls it over, right, and goes oops, and then slips away.
And they make up the story about it being giant. Because
exactly.
I can't believe an otter did it.
Oh my God, I can't believe an otter did this. Gigantic.
So there we go. There we got 3 tales of water-based creatures in New York. All probably tall tales. Oh, definitely tall tales. I will definitely say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All were definitely tall tales, but a lot of fun.
Definitely tall tales.
A lot of fun.
And one was a sea serpent selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The other was Retribution.
Exactly, and the other one was Retribution.
We don't know about the Gorton Turtle. We don't know what the story was behind the Gorton Turtle, unless that farmer was a big teller of tales.
Of course.
And people were like, "Hey, where's your wagon of rocks?" And he's like, "Oh, I gotta tell. Oh, you won't believe this."
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he probably ditched that wagon of rocks over into the water himself.
Yeah.
And cook up a good story real quick.
You won't believe what I just saw. This giant mud turtle. They only grow 5 inches. Well, this one's bigger.
A giant mud turtle. Oh my goodness sakes, the wrong kind of turtle.
Like I said, when it comes to giant turtles living in lakes, the Beast of Busco is legit. I think that was legit. I don't even think that was a cryptid. I think legit they saw a giant alligator snapping turtle. Mm-hmm. Yes. We saw a giant snapping turtle.
Yeah, exactly.
My sister still claims to this day that there was a giant snapping turtle while we were going down the Chippewa River. Mm-hmm. His mouth was large enough to snap a foot off. No one else saw it. Mm-hmm. But the one we saw, that took a couple fingers off. Easily.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which, by the way,
dangerous.
Here's my PSA. If you see a snapping turtle in real life, do not antagonize it. Stay a good distance away, because they do jump. Surprisingly, people don't realize those turtles can jump, and they will take chunks out of you.
Oh, for sure.
If they are aggravated. So don't think because it's a turtle it can't defend itself.
Oh, yeah, it's just a slow turtle.
Yeah, if it starts hissing, get the hell out of there.
Poke at it all you like.
Yeah.
And then the thing jumps up.
Yeah.
Jumps 4.5 feet and nips off your nose. Yeah. You know.
Because think about it, those are very strong muscles in those legs. They got to carry their home.
Exactly.
Yep. And I hope anything else we've taught you today is if you need to get back at another fisherman for trying to cheat you out of a friendly wager, just build a little sea serpent creature and have fun.
So, thank you very much for listening to our aquatic-based podcast.
Bye.
This time.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Unearthly Upstate. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and on our webpage. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. Please like, share, and review on your favorite platform. Unearthly Upstate is an Animator Liar production. The show is produced by Mari and Matt Manette, with purring provided by Honey and Lloyd. Research and writing by Mari Manette. Music is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Unless otherwise stated in the episode, the places mentioned in the broadcast are not paid or contact us for any type of promotion. Please check out our webpage for credit and sources for the episode. Thank you.